Alright, so I do need to explain this real quick. Because when it came to my first opinion on Lights Out, like the first iteration that came out about like 7-8 months ago, I didn't think it was a great game mode in of itself. I thought it was just a very basic game mode, and I thought it was kind of whatever. And, you know, I kind of just left it off as just like, you know, like, oh, you know, just they're trying to learn how to make new game modes and this is the start of it, you know, whatever. But I always had this idea that, like, they could, I think I mentioned this in the 2v8 discussion too, that, like, they could have just gone back and, you know, changed all the other game modes to, like, you know, make them a little bit more unique. I made that point in the 2v8 video as well. And over this, like, next week, it appears that they are, in fact, going to be bringing these game modes back and, you know, changing something about them. And the first iteration change that we've seen is the Lights Out Castlevania edition, which has released to coincide with the Castlevania DLC that came out like almost a month at this point, not even a month, maybe like just a couple weeks. And it had like it has its own tome and stuff similar to all the other modes. And I did play it, and you know, compared to every single game mode they've released, I really think that I don't know how they messed it up. They somehow made a game mode worse than the original Lights Out. At least in my opinion. And I'm gonna be getting into that because I think it's ridiculous how did they mess this up? And that's just what I'm like gonna try and answer for myself today. So, if you haven't been in the DBD news recently, because there's been a lot going on with Dead by Daylight, we just got the Castlevania DLC and a bunch of other, you know, stuff that has come out, and as well as the announcements of new chapters and stuff. But as of recently, we've gotten the announcements of returning game modes being Lights Out and Chaos Shuffle. And Lights Out was announced to be having a difference of being related to Castlevania and stuff like that, and as of now, it is currently out. I don't know how long it's going to be out for, because I didn't really play much of it, which I'll explain why. But yeah, I remember playing it, and yeah, to say that this new version of Lights Out is better than the original, I wholeheartedly disagree. I think the original was honestly better, because when I said in my 2v video that they could go back to game modes and change them around a bit to make them feel a little bit more unique, I didn't mean force a mechanic that nobody wants to have on the mall game just to be able to play the game. But let me just give a quick rundown pretty much. So with the new Castlevania Lights Out, it's pretty much the exact same as the original Lights Out, where the whole map is pitch black, and there is no HUD indicators besides the HUD indicators of the survivors. There is no progress bars or anything like that. You cannot bring perks or items. There is a limited number of maps. And pretty much every killer can play on this mode except for Freddy, which happened in the last one as well. But yeah, it's basically just stripping Dead by Daylight down to its base form and just basically making it so you can't see. And you know, that was like the unique thing about it to me, was that like it felt like a very like original Dead by Daylight to me, because it felt like I actually had competition to deal with. But yeah, so like with Lights Out, it's like all the generators start at like 5% or something like that. And there's no ore reading besides like the hooks and stuff like that. But that was all with the original Lights Out. With the new Lights Out, the Castlevania edition, it's still the same game mode. They did add, I think they added maybe like 2 or 3 more maps to the list of maps you can play on, I think. But with the main difference being that it's supposed to be themed around Castlevania, and, you know, there's a lot of things you can think of when it comes to Castlevania in Dead by Daylight. And so, you know, I was like, okay, what are they going to do for a Castlevania game mode? And they literally just added a candelabra as a light source. That is literally basically the only thing they really added, was the fact that you can pick up this candelabra and it just creates light around you. And you can hold right click on it to increase the brightness by a little bit, as well as you can use the candelabra to see auras of generators, and you can put the candelabra on top of generators to be able to just kind of see around while you're doing the gen, so that way you don't have to hold it. But that doesn't really make sense because you can also just drop it on the floor. But anyways, so that's the only real main difference. They did also add some like effects, like you see these like bats flying around you a little bit, and there's like some like little like eyes in the darkness to kind of, you know, really make you feel like you're like make it feel more Castlevania-esque. But like that's literally it. That's all they did. They literally just added a mechanic that wasn't really necessary because the original Lights Out was fine, and just tried to and just said it was Castlevania edition. Like they could have just made it. They could have added like a lantern or something and said that it was like Lights Out Amnesia edition because of a lantern, and it would have been the exact same mode. But I don't know. I just think like in terms of just like how the game mode actually plays, it's really not great. Like, I know the one issue I mainly had when I first loaded into it, and, you know, my first, because I played it on day one because I wanted to get my actual opinions on just the first day, and I know this is a big debate, like, well, it's not really a big debate, but, like, some people will say that it's changed, some people won't say it's changed, but I feel like they made the game darker just so you have to use the candelabra. Because looking back at the old footage I had of the original Lights Out, it just looked like, you know, it was still dark obviously, but it looked like you could see further out. And, you know, it looked like, you know, like you didn't need a light, like you could still just walk around and you know, generally figure out where you're going. But with this new Lights Out, it's like the game is literally pitch black if you don't have a candelabra. And it honestly just made the game feel straight up unplayable for both Survivor and Killer, but, you know, I'll get to Killer in a bit because most of my games were as Survivor. But, yeah, no, you literally can't see anything without the candelabra. And yeah, I know some people have said that it hasn't really changed for them, and, you know, it doesn't really make a difference, and I'm not sure. Like, honestly, I'm not 100% sure if they actually changed the brightness, but just from looking at it and then looking at my old Lights Out video, it looks darker. It just looks darker. And, you know, that's kind of an issue when, you know, you don't want to play the game holding this lantern the entire time, or this candelabra the entire time. You don't want to walk around holding this thing for the entire time. But they literally just made it so... like, as far as I know, they made the game even darker and reduced the amount of vision by even more than what it was before, just so that way they had a reason to implement this candelabra into the game. And so similar to the original Lights Out, you can find items in chests, but you also find candelabras in chests, which is still a good change, especially since in this game mode, if a killer downs you, you actually drop the candelabra, so it makes more sense. So that way, like, you don't have to like run all the way back to where you got down just to pick it up. You can like find a chest or something like that, and you can take them off of generators if one's like already placed on one. But like, it just feels like a waste of like a potential for a game mode, because they could have done. I feel like they could have done so many different things with Lights Out to make it feel more unique. And instead, they just implemented a candelabra and then made the game even harder to play without it. And it just feels ridiculous to play as Survivor, because it's like, you know, with Survivor, it's like the whole thing is that, like, at least for me in the original Lights Out, was that, like, you could still see at least an entire tile. You could still see an entire tile. So that way, like, you know, if you feel like you're just running in the open, you might stumble across one and you're like, okay, I can still use this, and you see the entire thing. With the new Lights Out, it feels like you just can't see anything no matter how close you are to it. Like, the only time you'll ever see it is when you're literally pushing up against it. So it's like, they're literally trying to force people to use these candelabras, which I just think is stupid. Like, I get it to use it just as, like, a mechanic, but, like, it doesn't make sense to use it, like, I want to be able to use it willingly, not forcefully, but it felt like every match I played, I couldn't play without having to use it. But, you know, again, like, I don't know if it's actually darker, but from my experience, it felt like it was, like, a lot darker, especially comparing it to the original Lights Out. And that was mostly for Survivor. And other things I really noticed as Survivor was that, the ranking system is back in this game mode, which really upsets me, because I thought Behavior were snipping in a new direction with game modes, because when 2v8 came out, they got rid of the ranking system in the MMR system, so you never lost or gained rank based on how you played in 2v8. So I thought, okay, this is going to be a new direction for them, they're not going to have it anymore. With the new Lights Out, they brought it back, which I'm just like, why? Like, there's no reason for me to be ranking up in a external game mode that doesn't feel like it's meant to be played seriously. Like, if the ranking system was in 2v8, I would have been even more upset, because that game mode is designed to not be played in a competitive way or in a serious way like that. Like, and that's how I feel with all of these game modifiers, or game modes, is that, like, you're not supposed to really play them super tryhardy. Like, obviously people are still going to try hard on them, which is expected because it's Dead by Daylight, but like, if Behavior wants to go for a more casual friendly game mode or game modifier and wants to, you know, make stuff centered around the casual community, they should just be releasing these things without a ranking system. Because with the ranking system, it just causes even more issues, because it's like, you know, people don't want to go, there's some people that just don't want to go down in their MMR if they die. And with a game mode like this, where it's harder to play because you can't see, you're going to be making a lot more mistakes, meaning your MMR is probably going to go down because you're going to be dying more often. So it's just like, it just feels like they didn't take it into consideration. They just took the original game mode and just added the new mechanic and then just threw it out there. Like, they didn't actually go into it and actually change things, like, because the ranking system is still there. There's a bunch of other issues that are still there in the original that we talked about, including when I played Killer. One of the points that I made in the original Lights Out discussion was that Legion and Doctor were some of the best killers that you can use, because even though the game says that all the killers are quote-unquote undetectable, you can still use Legion's power and Doctor's power like as if you still had a terror radius, and it would still work completely fine. Because when it comes to, like, Legion and stuff, it's like, Legion's ability is centered around their terror radius, meaning when you M1 somebody, if nobody's in your terror radius, you're not going to get the Killer Instinct proc. So in a game mode where I'm supposed to be undetectable, I still get Killer Instinct procs. I don't get why that's a thing. Like, the only excuse that I feel like they can make is that, oh, we still wanted to make this killer feel fair to play. But, like, again, like, it's just one of those things where it's like, it just feels like they didn't actually go through and actually trying to make the game mode unique. They literally just took the original game mode, made one change, and then just threw it onto the servers. And yeah, that was just another issue I faced, was that they didn't change anything about the killer terror radiuses, because even though they say killers are undetectable or have no terror radius, they still do, they're just coded to not be heard by the other players. So it's like they do have a terror radius. And then there's some killers that are just straight up even harder to play as, and well, not even as, they're even harder to play against, like Dredge. Like, I was literally talking to my friend Gage about this, because I saw a clip on Twitter of somebody playing against a Dredge, and oh my god, Twitter is like the worst place you could go for Dead by Daylight content, let me just tell you that right now. But yeah, like, I've seen videos and stuff on Twitter and YouTube and stuff of people facing Dredge on Lights Out, and because it's even darker in this version, it gets even darker because of Nightfall. So it's just like, it's like Behavior just didn't even try. Like they didn't even try to do anything. And then Freddy is still disabled in this game mode, which is understandable because, you know, his lighting from the dream world is not really going to be able to work out in a game mode like this. But there was also just a bunch of weird visual issues that I also noticed, like things that were visually noticeable. Such as, because one of the maps that they implemented into Lights Out was the Unknowns map, the Greenville Square, I think it's called. And if you bring a candelabra into the theater room, and you, like, look through the glass window, you can see the thick fog that they added to make it even harder to see. So it's like, they didn't even try to, like, make it look decent. They literally just added a thicker layer of fog and just threw it out there. Like, it just did not feel fun at all. And then, like, and there's practically little to no Castlevania reference at all, other than the candelabras and, like, the little bats and stuff. Like what else about this is Castlevania related? There's literally nothing else. Oh, like, but and some people will say, like, oh, but the tome challenges require you to play, like, Trevor and Dracula, but it's like, that doesn't mean that it's Castlevania themed. It just means that they're giving Castlevania rewards. It's just so stupid to me, because, like, Behavior does that as well, where they'll release a licensed chapter, and then the next rift they do will be based around that chapter. So I won't be surprised within, like, the next rift or so if one of the rifts we get is Castlevania related. So it's just like, there's basically little to no Castlevania references in here, because like I said, you can replace the candelabras with literally anything, and it would still be the exact same situation. And it's just like, it's so mind-boggling to me how Behavior tried to claim that this was going to change the game, like, to make it feel completely different, and then it's like, it's not even close. It's just Lights Out with one extra step, and you need to do this or the game is just unplayable. Like, the first day that I was playing Lights Out, I literally just had to, like, I just had to stop. I literally just had to stop playing it, because it was giving me a headache, and my eyes were just feeling so strained from staring deep into my screen trying to, like, locate these survivors. Because in Lights Out as well, survivors don't leave scratch marks. They do leave pools of blood, but they don't leave scratch marks, and you can still hear them if you're close enough. But yeah, so it's like trying to track a survivor through fog that's even deep, the fog that's even, like, darker than it was before, while trying to constantly track these people on maps that, you know, you need the knowledge to understand. It's like, it just felt so unplayable, at least for me. I don't know if anyone else has had the issues, but it just felt so unplayable, and it just felt like there was no reason for me to play this. Like, it didn't even feel like the rift was worth it, because you get, like, 2 rewards for playing the rift, unless you're not counting, like, the blood points and stuff, and it's just like, it literally just felt like a giant waste of time. Like, I don't understand how Behavior messed this up. And as far as I know from what I've heard, I don't think they're going to be changing anything about Chaos Shuffle. They're just going to simply bring that one back, which is good, except for the fact that the ranking system was also in that game mode, but that's just my personal complaint. So, I don't know, it's just like, they need to, like, I just don't know, I just think they need to look back at this game mode and say that, like, they're just never going to do it again. Like, I don't think Behavior needs to bring back Lights Out, like, anymore. Because, like, the original Lights Out was very basic, but it was still at least playable, because it was just Dead by Daylight, but a little bit darker. So you can kind of get away with that. But this new Lights Out, I feel like this is just a sign that Behavior just needs to stop messing with this game modifier entirely. Because it's like, it's not that it's a decent concept, but their execution with it is just not good. Like, especially with the fact that they're trying to make this new one Castlevania themed Lights Out. It's like, I saw the idea, but, like, the execution was just really, really bad. And, like, I don't know, I really wanted to quickly, like, just make this discussion video and just throw it together, because I felt so annoyed that, like, this is what I'm gonna be dealing with DBD for the next... I mean, obviously, I'm not playing Lights Out. I know other friends of mine are probably gonna be playing Lights Out, and some of them are mad for me to play Lights Out. I'm not playing Lights Out anymore, because I just don't think it's worth my time. I don't think this new Lights Out is worth my time. I don't even care about the challenges. It's just, like, the challenges are stupid, the game mode, like, there's little to nothing changed. And they just made the game harder for people that don't want to play it how they want them to play it. Like, you could have played this game mode, like, I feel like if they were going to implement this Candelabra as a core game mode, they would have made it so it was an optional thing. Like, you know, they could have left the lighting the same as it was originally, and then just, like, you know, tweaked the Candelabra, maybe added some extra uses for it, and just made it so if you wanted to use it, you can if you want to, because then it would allow them to make more challenges based around the Candelabra. Most of the time, the Candelabra challenges are just put it on a generator 3 times. Alright, you're good. Like, it's so stupid. And then the worst part about the Candelabra is, because like I said, when you hold right click, it shines a little bit brighter, and you can see the auras of generators. But the Candelabra has charges to it, which, for non-Dead by Daylight players, charges are basically just, like, you know, how long you can use the item for, like, the duration of using it. Like, you know, whenever you use a flashlight and, like, you know, you have the bar, the Candelabra has that, but you can't see it. And it's just like, yeah, so you can see the auras of people. I'm pretty sure when you hold it down, you can see, it brings up the icon to, like, tell you if someone's on, like, a generator or a chest or something, which I thought that was a bug, but I guess it might be intentional from what I've seen. I guess it is, but it just felt like it was just a waste of time for behavior. Like, they could have just spent more time developing, like, other game modes or working on stuff like 2v8 or Chaos Shuffle or something, and instead they just chose to make a really bad version of Lights Out. Which is just crazy to me, because it's like, how do you mess up a game mode that is designed to be simplistic? Like, the whole thing with Lights Out was that it was the most simple, back down-to-earth version of Dead by Daylight. And they somehow made it worse with this, because it's just, they add a new mechanic and then force it on people if they want to actually have a chance of playing the game. Like, it's just, I don't know, it's just something that I've wanted to get my opinion out for the past few days, just because I'm like, every time I play DBD and I see that game mode, I just get sad. It's just like, it's just not good. It's not good. And I mean, like, to be fair as well, like, I'm not the biggest Castlevania fan to begin with. Like, I do like Castlevania, and I've seen the games, and I know, like, the characters and stuff like that. So that's why I was excited for them to come to Dead by Daylight. And that's why I was even more excited when I heard that they were re-releasing Lights Out, but it was going to be Castlevania themed. Because then it got me thinking, oh, well, what are they going to do? What are they going to add? And they basically changed nothing about the core game. They added one new mechanic that you basically have to use if you want to, if you even want a shot at winning the game, let alone being able to, like, play in a chase and stuff normally. And playing certain killers on this game mode is just awful as well. I made this point in the last one, where killers like Dredge, Pinhead, and killers that, like, have abilities where their character can, like, change their camera perspective, it's probably even worse, and probably just feels even more disorienting, especially for new players that don't know these map layouts very well, because it's the same original 4 maps, and then they added 2 more, I believe. So, you know, and most of the maps are really complicated or indoor maps like the treatment theater, so it's like, people that don't understand these map layouts are not gonna have fun running it into walls because they can't see more than, like, 1 meter in front of them because they made the lighting even worse. And, you know, like I said, some people say that the lighting hasn't changed, and, you know, I'm not gonna, like, say that they're not wrong. I just, like, don't know for sure, because from my experience, it feels like it's a lot darker. Like, the game looks pitch black on my monitor, which, you know, could just be a me thing with my monitor, but, like, I play on the highest settings, and it looks unplayable. It literally looks unplayable. And if I decide to record any footage of Lights Out and you see it, you'll probably see what I mean, because it's awful, and I hated every match that I played. Because it wasn't even like the player's fault or the killer's fault or like my team or anything. It was literally just the fact that it felt like whatever happened in the game was out of my control because I can't see what I'm doing. And because at least with the original Lights Out, I could still see a decent amount of the game, so I still had some control over what was going to happen. But because the maps are just so incredibly dark, and I have to carry the candelabra around just to be able to play the game, it just felt like most of the things that happened were out of my control, and I couldn't really do much. But yeah, like, the game was not going to be lasting very long, so I wanted to get this out quickly because I knew it wasn't going to be lasting very long. Plus I still have other Dead by Daylight related stuff that I need to edit and finish and stuff like that. Like, I still have the FNAF video and stuff I'm working on. But I wanted to get this out just because I knew I made a video on Lights Out and made a whole, like, hour-long discussion video about it. And I just wanted to give a quick video talking about my opinion about it. And this game mode just feels worse. Like, out of all the game modes, I would put this one below the original Lights Out, because I just think the original Lights Out was better in the fact that it still felt like very bare-bones Dead by Daylight, but it still felt playable, and it didn't feel like there was any extra mechanics that I had to use if I wanted a chance at winning, compared to this new one, where it doesn't feel playable, man. It just doesn't. And yeah, there's just some killers that I just don't think work well in this game mode, and especially, like, you know, stuff like, you know, Dracula being in the game now, which Dracula is a fine killer, all things considered, but, like, just the fact that even playing killer, you can basically see nothing like the survivors. It just felt bad, and I don't like it. I don't like it. I don't think the game mode's fun, and it felt like it was causing more issues than I was willing to put up with, especially since, like I said, there's a ranking system. And they literally released this game mode at the same time that rank reset was happening, which I feel like they did on purpose, so that way people can't complain about the ranking system, because, you know, the ranking system just reset when the game mode drops. Which makes sense, but, like, at the same time, it's like, you could have just removed it. And, another point that I want to make, because I know Gage, my friend Gage, that I bring for these DBD discussion videos, he mentioned it to me as well. He mentioned it to me with every single game mode that's been in the game so far, is that there's no custom games. And, you know, like, that would feel so much nicer if there was custom game where you can play into a custom game of Lights Out, or a custom game of Chaos Shuffle, or 2v8, or whatever. They really should have just made all of these things allow you to play in custom games, so that way you can play with friends and not just randoms, and as well as you can actually choose what you want and, like, you know, make it feel more fun and, like, more wacky with your friends. But yeah, you look at Lights Out now and it's just like, it's just not good. I'm honestly just not happy with it. I don't like the new Lights Out, and I'm probably never gonna play it again. Like, unless they bring back the original one that I thought was actually decent, maybe I'll go back to it, but I'm just, I couldn't be bothered. I could not be bothered. It does not feel fun in any way, and it just feels like it feels even lazier than the original, because the original felt lazy, but that was because that was their first game mode they brought in, so they're still learning how everything works. At this point, we've had multiple game modes and modifiers that they could have easily taken inspiration from, or, you know, just came up with new ideas, and they chose to just not only re-release their first game mode, but make it even worse by forcing people to use a mechanic that is just flat out not good. Like, there's no reason for me to have to use this candelabra in any other situation, besides the fact that I can't see. And even then, it's like, it doesn't increase the distance by, like, that much. Like, I feel like with the candelabra, it only increases the distance to, like, how it used to be with the original Lights Out. So it just doesn't feel like it matters really much. It feels like the candelabra doesn't matter, but it does matter because you physically can't play the game without it, because you can't see, or the game is literally just pitch black. And, you know, there's just some killers that are just absolutely a nightmare to play against on this mode. Like, some killers I just hate playing against. You know, Dredge being one of them. Like, Dredge is just a bad killer in this mode just because Nightfall makes it significantly darker. Legion is stupid because of the whole terror radius thing, and so is Doctor. There is so few killers that I actually find work fairly well in Lights Out. And it just feels like, it just feels stupid. Like, it doesn't feel good. And then the thing is, too, is that, like, with some killers, like the Unknown, because I played a killer match as the Unknown in Lights Out, and it turns out that even if the survivors can't see you in the fog, they can still look at you and get rid of their weakened effect if you hit them with your UVX. Meaning that the fog is literally like, it doesn't add anything. It doesn't add any extra layer of stealth or like gameplay. It doesn't add anything to like benefit either side. It's literally just a filter. It is a filter. So it's like it just felt so lazy, and it just felt really bad. And like, I don't know, it's just not a good game mode. I'm not happy with it. And I just wanted to quickly do this discussion video just to express my disappointment with this mode, because it's just like, it's not fun, and it's not unique enough for me to willingly recommend people to play this mode. Compared to 2v8, which was like absolute peak, which if you haven't seen that, I totally recommend you check out that discussion video, because we talked a lot about 2v8, or even my original Lights Out video, since that was made at the time then it was the first official mode in the game. And it didn't feel fun. Like, the new Lights Out was just bad. And I don't recommend people really play it. Like, you know, obviously, you know, give it a shot if you want, or if you're one of those people that likes grinding out the tomes, you know, you do you. But me personally, I'm not going back. I refuse to play more of it, and it's just, it sucks, because I thought there was a decent amount of potential here, and I just feel like Behavior fumbled it. And it's kind of sad as well, because Behavior fumbled this mode right when it felt like they were at their peak again. Because they just announced the FNAF collab, Dracula just released, and a bunch of other like cool stuff was happening in the game. So it felt like Dead by Daylight was going back up, and it felt like it was, you know, going back on its high, you know, peak of being like really good. And then the devs just had to ruin it by releasing this game mode. So yeah, that's basically all I really had to say. Yeah, it's just not a fun mode, and I'm not really happy with it. So, yeah, just make sure if you want to check out the other discussion stuff you can, but yeah, I'm not playing this game mode ever again. So, yeah, that's about it.